Reese from Terminator, Captain Dwayne Hicks from Aliens. He was in Tombstone, Planet Terror. He was on Hill Street Blues, the TV show. Please welcome, we're not going to waste any time, let's bring him in, Michael Biehn, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready with your questions. Warren's going to be coming on. You can keep on clapping all the way to the podium.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for coming out to see me. Appreciate it. Nice to know that there's still a few fans left. So I guess we just get this started by asking questions. Usually somebody will ask me a question and I'll talk and answer that question, and the time is up by the time I finish. So, you know, hey, don't. Anyway, let's somebody put their hand up first and ask a question. There you go.
Can you tell us a little bit about Treachery, the movie that's coming out, and when it's going to be released?
What? Yeah.
Hi. He didn't expect that to be the first question, but it's nice. You can actually go on Alien Bee. A review came out today about Treachery. So if you look up like Treachery and alienbee.com or something like that. But it should come out. We have some announcements coming out about Treachery. We're in the middle of distribution deals right now. And so it will come out in 2014. I don't know exactly which fashion. There'll probably be some small theatrical release in LA. You'll be able to get it on demand, and definitely like Walmart, Best Buy, we hope Redbox. And Michael gives a really good performance in it. So that's the deal.
It's, we started, I did a movie with Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino called Grindhouse. And, it's basically about all these, it's kind of emulating all the old Roger Corman B movies. And I decided to make a movie like that because it's very cheap. And, well, Ron Howard made like Eat My Dust, and Scorsese did Boxcar Bertha for them. Cameron did the underwater movie. I forget about the, what do you call those little fish that eat people? Piranha. Yeah, Piranha 3, I think, got fired off of it or whatever. So anyway, I had a chance to make this little movie. So I made this movie called The Victim, and I had 3 weeks to write it. And during that 3 weeks, we did all the pre-production. We cast it and found all the locations, and we crewed up and dealt with the Screen Actors Guild, and we shot it in 12 days. So, we shot that in 12 days. Terminator was considered a low-budget movie at the time. We shot that in 12 weeks. So, you got to kind of know that when you see these movies that we're making, that we're spending considerably less money than most movies. And we're actually making them these days, because of all the different cameras and stuff, you can make them for a lot less. And so Jennifer and I started a production company after that, and we've got about the Victim came out. Anchor Bay bought it from us, gave us a very, very good deal, and it is, on your video shelves as we speak, or pay-per-views, and you can find it if you look hard enough at Walmart and all those kind of places. I'm very proud of it. You just got to know that when you have $100,000 and 6 weeks to build a house, it's going to look one way, and if you've got $10,000 and a week to build it, it's going to look another way. So it was a lot of fun to make.
I'm just going to hone in on this. So besides VOD and Blu-ray and DVD and Walmart and Best Buy is where you can get The Victim, or Amazon online. We have it at our table. You can get signatures with it, and you can talk to Michael about it, or me, but you can talk to him about it. He wrote it and directed it, so it's there.
It's a lot of fun, and I actually think it's my greatest achievement. I mean, you know, I don't like to think of myself as, hey, my greatest, isn't this the... But I'm proudest, more proud is not right. I'm prouder of what I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. If you knew the circumstances under which it was made, you would appreciate it a lot more. But it's still a lot of fun, and I think you like it. There's some flaws in it, but it's a lot of fun.
We're proud of you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, just Jan is one of the associate producers on Treachery, so no one just can't call her.
Right. So.
There she is, right there. Thank you for your help.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and that's a movie that we did. That was the second movie we did, and I think that we just made our distribution deal in the last week on it, and it's a small movie that takes place. It's a drama, really, that takes place in a one house. And again, you know, what you do when you make these small movies is one location, very few characters, and but I play this father who's a patriarch of this family and very wealthy, and you know, because of his wealth, and you know, everybody kind of, you know, bows down to him, and he's a drunk womanizer, and I had a lot of fun playing him. So yeah, it was a fun role, and there's a lot of really good performances in it. We have some friends in it, and it's you know, it's come out. It's gotten a couple of nice little reviews already, and so Jennifer and I have decided to keep making them. So we've got like another one called Hidden in the Woods that is in its second cut, and Night Visitors one that is going to come out soon, and we are shooting one when we get back, actually after we finish this, before Christmas. She Rises. It's called, with Angus McFadden, who was in Braveheart. So you know, we're starting to get. Who else we had in? Who else did we have in?
We have Altered Perception with John Cortez from Council.
Yeah.
And we have The Girl with Michael Biehn and Tia Carrera. So we got some cool stuff.
Yeah, but we also have
Hidden?
No, in Hidden we've got William Forsythe, who's a really great actor and really fine actor. So we're starting to kind of have a lot of fun doing these little movies, and the good thing about these movies is I get to make all the decisions, you know, and so usually when I'm working on a television show or a movie, and I say, can I change this word from the to it, and you know, it's like this big thing, and it goes up the line, and you know, it comes back, no, you have to leave it as it. It doesn't make any sense, it doesn't make any difference, just say it anyway. And it's like, okay, you know. So this one I get to, for good or bad, it's me. Especially the victim. The other ones are directed by other directors, and I just got to start it off by doing the victim. And it was easy for me to do because I started in it and directed it, and so you didn't have to pay me and a director, and that was kind of the idea. Yeah. So, yeah.
I read that you were considered for a role in the first Avatar, and I was curious if you were actually contacted for anything for that, and also if you've been contacted for anything for the sequels that are coming up.
Well, yeah, I was more than contacted for it. I came in, I met Jim. We talked a while about it, and I convinced him to give me the script, and I got the script, and I started like thinking about what I would do with the character that Stephen Lang eventually played. And I came in, and I had a 10 o'clock appointment with Jim, and I came in, and I think I kind of blew him away with what I wanted to do with that character. And I think I kind of had him on his heels, and he was, I think, pretty excited. He canceled his 11 o'clock appointment and took me downstairs at Lightstorm and showed me what he had showed at 20th Century Fox to get the $200 million that it was going to cost to make the movie. It was some of the early 3D work, and you know, at that moment I should have just turned to him and said, "So we have a deal," you know. But I wasn't smart enough to do that, and so we waited for a while. And Jim's not real good at returning calls, even from agents that handle people like Mel Gibson and Richard Gere and so on and so forth. And so we checked in once a month or so with John Landis, who is the producer of Jim's movies, won an Academy Award for Titanic, produced the Titanic, not executive producer, but producer. And we just waited and waited, and it was like 6 months, 7 months went by. We still hadn't heard, but we would check in. Yes, he's very much up for it. And then it started coming out in the press. In a Cool News said that they had a bunch of sources that came out of Lightstorm saying that I was going to be playing the role. So when I went out to do press for the Robert Rodriguez movie that I did with him and Quentin Tarantino, I got asked a lot about it. And I basically said, I don't know. You know, I went in, I gave him my spiel, we talked about it, but I haven't heard. So, you know, this is like 9 months after, you know, and still, you know, we check in. Oh, he's very much up for it. He's very much up for it. And then my son went to school with John Landis's son. And John Landis's son told my son that he didn't think I was going to get the role because they had just cast Sigourney Weaver in the movie. And she's a big Fox favorite. John Landau, I'm sorry. What was I calling him? Landis. John Landis, the director, who I've worked with. He's funniest. He's a great guy too. But John Landau, I'm sorry. And so John
keeps me around.
Yeah.
Right. So Landau's son, Jody, told my son, Kalen, that he didn't think I was going to get the role because Jim felt that me being in the movie and Sigourney being in the movie would kind of make people think about that alien connection. But that was just like some kid at school telling my kid at school, you know. It really didn't mean anything to me. And finally, Jim called my agent and told him that he was gonna. He didn't think it was going to work out because they had just cast Sigourney Weaver, and for that reason they weren't. So, but they did cast Stephen Lang, who I worked with in Tombstone, and he's a great actor, and he'd been around for a long time, and he'd never really gotten his due. I was very, very happy that they cast Stephen. Stephen was in Gettysburg, but he was a Broadway actor. He's the guy who did, You Can't Handle the Truth on Broadway, A Few Good Men, and he played that character, and of course they replaced him with Jack Nicholson, and so I was very, very happy when he got that role. And I've never seen the movie. I make it a point not to go to movies that when I don't get the role that I go up for, I don't see it. But from what I've heard, I could have done a better job.
Yes, you could have.
And now, from what I understand, Sigourney's in the sequels.
Oh, so.
Yeah, so I haven't heard anything about it.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And last time I saw Jim, I was showing him The Victim, and the subject didn't even come up. We're old friends, and I owe Jim really my career. I made this movie, this Grindhouse movie, The Victim, and Robert Rodriguez, kind of inspired me to make that movie. But people always ask me about Robert and then Jim, and Robert inspired me to make that movie, but I've always said I would take a bullet for Jim Cameron for what he's done for me and my family over the years. So, just not being, and people are always saying to me, the next Jim Cameron, even back when I was, like doing like The Abyss and stuff, I was like, he can't put me in every fucking movie that he makes. So,
his career too.
Yeah.
Well, he should, but he can't.
Yeah. They were good roles. They were written very well, and I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time with him. That's for sure. Yeah. Yes. Questions? Any other questions?
Yeah. How was your experience voice acting in Far Cry Blood Dragon?
I had a great time doing that. Dean, what's Dean's last name, Jen? What? I guess I don't need you so much, huh?
Evan!
Okay. Dean Evans is the guy who created that video game, and he is really a brilliant kind of guy. When you meet him, he is very, very unique, and his mind, you can just tell, is racing a mile a minute. And when he talks to you, he goes from video games to movies to comic books to movies to back to video, and he's very, very. He was very, very confident that Far Cry, Blood Dragon was going to be successful, and the whole retro thing was going to work. He was very confident. And I remember sitting at a meeting with him and his boss, and him telling me how successful it was going to be, and how much money it was going to make, and his boss looking at him and going, "Yeah, sure, we'll see." And I think he turned out to be right. And then I overheard some talk about them doing a sequel to it, because of course when anything makes money in Hollywood, they always have to do another one. And I mentioned that in the press, and Ubisoft immediately came, my phone started ringing off the hook saying, shh, 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 don't say anything about any sequels. So I'm not saying anything about any sequels.
And
I really enjoyed working on it, working with him. And when you're doing something like that, you're not really acting. You're just doing a voice, and it's, you don't have to worry about, memorizing lines, and you don't have to worry about, how you look or anything. You just wake up and drive to the studio and say a lot of fuck words. Say fuck a lot, So my 10-year-olds, anyway.
We have time for one more question.
Michael.
Yes.
Mike, when you do your projects, like you and Jenny are doing your projects together, what are you looking for the director to bring out your performance? What are you as an actor looking for in a director when you and Jen do your projects, and how is that different from when you're working with Cameron?
What are we looking for? Well, I'll tell you what we're looking for. Usually, what we found out with the second movie we did was not a genre movie, okay? It wasn't a zombie movie. It wasn't a, it wasn't, sex. It wasn't, although there was some sex in it, not a lot, It was not really a kind of grindhouse genre movie. And they're a little bit harder to sell. So what we really look for is are those things that unfortunately or fortunately sell in these low budget arenas, which is, when I did my movie, I thought, I don't have any money at all, so what am I going to exploit? It's the exploitation movie. So I looked over at my wife and said, would you mind getting naked for me in a movie? And she said, sure. She doesn't mind getting naked. She gets naked all the time.
Now you really want to come by the victim.
And I asked her if she had any friends that would mind getting naked for me, and she said, well, Danielle Harris might do it for us. And Danielle's got her own little following from Halloween, and she's been in a bunch of the Halloweens. So as I had sex, and then I figured like dirty cops and drugs, and I had enough money to do a little bit of action. I threw in a little bit of torture. Just a little bit of torture, and I said, fuck it, I'll do a serial killer too. And I just like mixed it all up, and that's the victim. So when people come to me with movies, and I get people I've been having people come to me with movies all the time, you know, and somebody will come to me and they say, I've got a script on, I want you to read it. And I'll go, well, what's it about? And they'll say, well, it's about the Civil War. And, and I'm right there, I'm like, dude, I can't make a movie about the Civil War, unless it's in one room, You have to we're making movies for, that's why you always see these movies that are made out in the woods, and you got 3 or 4 teenagers and some monster that you barely see until the end of the movie that then looks kind of stupid, That's the kind of movies. I mean, that's the kind of budgets that we're working with. But we're trying to be very inventive, and the one that we're doing now is kind of a cross. If you can believe it or not, I gave Angus McFadden kind of free rein with a horror movie, and he's turned it into a horror movie that is kind of half Shakespeare, half fucking Halloween, and it's going to be very interesting. So really, what I tell all young filmmakers is, you got to make them cheap, and find a good story. Try to do it on one location. Try to do it with as few of actors as possible, and that as compared to doing Aliens or something like that. I'm just a piece of I always like talk about making movies is like being on a football team, And when I'm making Aliens or what like that or something like that, I'm a running back, or I'm a tailback or something like that, But when I'm producing these movies, I'm like the owner of the team, And making Aliens is basically like and The Abyss and the Terminator and everything that I've always done as an actor has been nothing of me concentrating on how I can make this character interesting. And the latest movie that I've done that I'm really proud of, because there's a lot of crap. The worst thing that ever happened to me, by the way, was IMDb. That was like, because Navy SEALs, and the perfect example. It used to be I could take all of that stuff off my resume and just have all the good movies on my resume and send those out, but that doesn't happen anymore. And now people have seen like all this stuff that I've done over the years for money. I've got 4 children that I had to put through college and so on and so forth. And a lot of times I had to make choices about movies, and it always seems like they paid you like all the big money for the really bad stuff, and they won't pay you hardly anything for the good stuff because they know you want to work with Jim Cameron. They know you want to work with Martin Scorsese or Woody Allen, so why pay you? I mean, it's an honor to do, and that's kind of the difference between working. When I worked on Aliens, man, that's all I cared about was Hicks, and that's all I thought about was Hicks, and I didn't have any other responsibilities. And when I did Johnny Ringo, I just like sat around fucking practicing like for 3 months, and Val and I got together and we did a lot of rehearsing and stuff like that. And so it's a completely different experience, and I like them both. But I'm actually, I like them both. But it's hard to make, movies these days. They seem to either be $200 million movies, because like all the cineplexes these days, they're all owned by like the same people. Like, so if you have a movie and you want to get it in a theater, you can't get it into any of these cineplexes. You know, like I'm from Lake Havasu City in Arizona. There's like 60,000 people that live there, right? There's 2 movie theaters now. There used to be one little theater. Now there's 2 cineplexes in Lake Havasu City. Both cineplexes are playing the same movies, and those are the same movies that are playing at Universal City and Times Square. And, you know, those have got to be, you know, $200 million movies starring Jake, you know, Gyllenhaal, sorry. And people like that. And they've got to be these big franchise movies, or the kids' movies, which they do a great job with. So now you see a lot of the best work, like The Walking Dead and all that kind of stuff on television. And there are going to be so many ways to watch content in the future. 5 years from now, I would predict NBC, CBS, and ABC are going to be not any more prolific than the History Channel or HBO, or, you know, they're just going to kind of like disappear into the sunset, not be the powerhouses that they've been for all these years. Because there's now already, I mean, there's like 6 different cooking shows you can watch. There's, you know, yeah, I mean, you can watch, you know, guys kill alligators all day long. You can watch people in prison all day long, you know. And that's what I do, is I watch sports and guys in prison. So that's my thing. So is that it? So that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Biehn, thank you so much. Keep it going. He'll be back at his booth signing the rest of the day, and I believe